Hi guys, you are welcome to today's lesson. Today we'll be talking about the gaseous exchange, which can also be called the respiratory system. It should be noted that respiration is one of the characteristics of living things. Every living thing respires, be it a plant or an animal. And it also should be noted that the only moment that green plant requires carbon dioxide instead of oxygen is during photosynthesis, and that is a process by which green plants manufacture their food in the presence of sunlight. But in terms of respiration, both plants and animals requires oxygen, and they get rid or remove carbon dioxide. So to the topic in detail, we need to know the definition of respiration. It's very simple. Respiration simply means a process by which glucose is broken down in order to release energy. Or you say it is an enzyme catalyzed chemical reaction that involves the breaking down of glucose or food substances in order to release energy. In this format, the energy is represented with ATP, or formerly you say adenosine triphosphate. That is the full meaning of the ATP. It's another name for energy here. So a system by which, or a method, a process by which glucose is broken down in order to give out ATP, or you say in order to give out energy, is what we call respiration. Now, this respiration is being done by the respiratory system, or say the respiratory organ. There are two types of respiration. We have aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So when we talk about aerobics, we talk about presence of oxygen, and when we talk about anaerobics, we talk about the absence of oxygen. So what is aerobic respiration? Aerobic respiration is a type of respiration that requires the presence of oxygen in order to break down glucose to give out carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Remember, the energy there is ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. Why anaerobic respiration is a type of respiration that do not require the presence of oxygen. In this particular respiration, you can see it, say an organism like a bacteria, it respires without needing the presence of oxygen. So a type of aerobics requires oxygen, anaerobics doesn't require oxygen. That's the major difference between the both of them. And again, the product given out in aerobics, when glucose is being broken down, we have water, we have energy, and we have carbon dioxide. But in anaerobics, when glucose is being broken down in the absence of oxygen, you have ethanol, that is alcohol, then you have carbon dioxide. Again, talking about the stages of respiration, we have two stages of respiration, or you say two phases of respiration, where we have external respiration, which can also be called breathing. Then we have internal respiration, which can also be called tissue respiration. So when we talk about external respiration, it simply means a kind of gaseous exchange or respiration that involves the respiratory organ and the environment. In a simpler form, external respiration or breathing means inhaling or taking of oxygen and removing carbon dioxide. It's very simple. Breathing in of oxygen and taking out carbon dioxide. That is what external respiration is talking about. Now, when we talk about internal respiration, or you call it tissue respiration, this type of respiration, it involves the oxidation of the glucose in order to release energy, carbon dioxide, and so on. It is being done within the cell. So external respiration requires breathing in oxygen and taking out carbon dioxide. But internal respiration, you call it tissue respiration, it's talking about the oxidation of food substances in order to release, or the breaking down of glucose, yes, in order to release energy, carbon dioxide. Again, there are some conditions that are necessary for respiration to take place. Without these conditions, gaseous exchange seems to be very difficult, or equally say it may not be possible. So what are these conditions that are necessary for respiration to take place? Okay, we have the respiratory medium. The respiratory medium we talk about this, the environment itself that produces the oxygen. For example, the respiratory medium, we have an example, water and air is an example of the respiratory medium. So it must be present before respiration can take place. Another example of the condition which is necessary for respiration to take place is the respiratory organ. Before one can breathe or one can respire, there must be presence of respiratory organ. An example of a respiratory organ is the gills, the lungs. There are some examples. Even the body system, the body surface, the mouth. There are some examples of the respiratory organ. So when we talk about the conditions which are necessary for respiration to take place, we have the respiratory medium, example air and water. Then we have the respiratory organ, example the lungs, the gills, so on. Another thing or condition which has to be present before respiration takes place is ventilation. Yes, ventilation is talking about the movement of air in a given direction. So there must be presence of movement or passage of air before respiration can take place also. Then We also have the transport medium like blood, which is after the glucose must have been broken down, it is the transport medium, that is the blood, that will carry the blood from one place to another. So transport medium, ventilation, respiratory organ, respiratory medium, all these are some conditions that are necessary for respiration to take place. So all these conditions must be there before respiration can take place. Equally, different organisms have a particular or a special respiratory organ they use for respiration. For example, we the human beings, the name of our respiratory organ is the lungs. We make use of our two lungs for respiration. And organisms like plants, flowering plants or green plants, they make use of the stomata and the lenticel. They make use of the stomata and the lenticel to perform the gaseous exchange. So the name of the respiratory organ of a flowering plant is the stomata and the lenticel. And do not forget that the closing and the opening of the stomata is being controlled by the gut cell. So the stomata and the lenticels are the respiratory organs in plants. In human beings, or say in mammals, we make use of our lungs as our respiratory organ. Unicellular organisms like an amoeba and the paramecium, they make use of the body surface to respire. And an organism like say an earthworm equally uses the body surface as a respiratory organ. Okay, we have amphibians like toad and frog. The toad and frog, the name of the respiratory organ, they make use of the mouth, they make use of the skin, they also make use of the lungs. So the mouth, the skin, and the lungs serve as the respiratory organ of an amphibian, say a toad or a frog. Now, other organisms, they have something like Hydra. Hydra makes use of the cell membrane as the respiratory organ. So organisms have different respiratory organs they use for gaseous exchange. There are different ways of which organisms perform gaseous exchange. For example, unicellular organisms, just to put more light to throw more light to this one, when we talk about unicellular organisms, we talk about those organisms that have one cell. Okay, an example of organism that have one cell is the Euglena. We have the paramecium, we have the amoeba, we have the chlamydomonas, plasmodium, so on and so on. They have one cell. And the name of the respiratory organ there is the body surface. They make use of this body surface to breathe in oxygen and to take a carbon dioxide. Now, at this point, it is being aided by simple diffusion, in which oxygen that is dissolved in the environment diffuses into their body and carbon dioxide diffuses out too. So gaseous exchange in unicellular organisms is very simple in the sense that it is being aided by simple diffusion, that oxygen diffuses in, and then at the end of the whole oxidation, carbon dioxide equally diffuses out of the body because they have one cell. So they make use of just one cell to perform their life activities. Now, when we talk about insects, let's say arthropods, yes, they use the tracheal system, or you say the spiracle. The spiracle is when we talk about arthropods, we talk about animals with jointed legs. Okay, something like a spider is an arthropod. All these, a cockroach, a butterfly. So on all these animals with jointed is the largest kingdom, is the largest phylum for animals in terms of classification. And do not forget, the system of classifying living things is called taxonomy. So it's a bonus for me to say it here. Now, every organism has a way of which they respire. For example, in arthropods, let's say for insects, the respiration in insects is very simple in the sense that they compress and relax their body. When they compress the body, the gases that are within the environment or within the body is expelled. Then when they relax the body, all gases, something like oxygen, fill up the body surface. So in tracheal, what's it called again? Arthropod, say insects to be specific. Respiration there is very simple in the sense that they compresses the body and then they relax the body. When they compress the body, the air within them is being expelled. Then when they relax the body, the air fill up the body surface. Do not forget, the name of the respiratory organ used by insects, or say arthropod at large, is a spiracle. They make use of the spiracle to respire. Then in fishes, respiration in fishes is being aided by the gill. Yes, fishes make use of the gill. You see the gill at the both side of the fish, or the head of it. You have the gills there. Now, the gaseous exchange takes place at the gill filament of a fish. A fish has a gill, and the gill is being closed. The gill chamber itself is being closed externally by what we call the upper column. So at the gill has three main parts. We have the gill recca, we have the gill filament, we have the gill arc. So the gaseous exchange takes place at the gill filament of a fish. While the gill recca helps to prevent food particles from entering the gill chamber, then the gill arc is where the gill filament is being built on. So the three subdivisions of the gill of a fish is the gill filament, the gilleka and the gill arch. And do not forget, the gilleka is a structure of the gill that prevents the food particles from entering into the gill chamber, while the gill filament is where the gaseous exchange takes place, and finally the gill arch is where the gill filament is being found. So the respiration in fishes is very simple, in the sense that gases enters, or when a fish wants to breathe, has to open its mouth so that it draws water into the gut or into the mouth, and there is a gaseous exchange between the gill filament and the water that is containing dissolved oxygen in it. So the sound of which you are hearing now is being produced by the larynx. The larynx is a structure in along our esophagus where sounds are being produced automatically. Alright guys, see you in my next class. God bless you.